Well, as we talk about Major League Baseball and what they're doing or not doing as it relates to the Astros, another league is looking to make some changes, and that's the NFL, Cedric. They are talking about, and it sounds like it may be coming close to happening, changes to the NFL postseason, adding 2 teams, giving the number 1 overall team in both conferences a first-round bye. Nobody else would get a bye under this new structure. Sounds like this is pretty plausible. This is happening with the new CBA, their collective bargaining agreement, the conversations that are going on between players, between owners, between the league. Sounds like this is going to happen. If it does it take away from a postseason that's already pretty good? Do you like the potential change or no?
I don't like it. I love it. Give me some more playoffs. Give me some more playoff teams, Jen. 14 playoff teams. That's about almost half of the league. I love it.
Yeah.
As long as they don't add any more games. I don't want them adding games, but I think if you can have 2 17 tournaments leading up to the Super Bowl, it will not take away from the regular season. It's going to keep teams more competitive because they know there's an extra spot available, and it's going to make those big dogs at the top of the heap work even harder to get that all-important bye. You thought that bye was important over the last 25 years under the current model. It's way more important now because there's only going to be 2 teams that's going to be able to benefit from that rest. And another thing, Jen, usually a team that's dominant, that's in line for a 1 seed, sometimes wraps that thing up in week 16. So you're looking at possibly resting your starters in week 17 and resting your starters in the first week of the playoffs. That is a big deal. And so I think it adds to the allure of the playoffs. It's the best tournament out there besides March Madness. And I am all for 2 extra playoff teams in the NFL tournament.
Yeah, I think that the playoff expansion, I mean, I think it's already great, but I don't think we would see a bunch of, non-consequential teams involved. Somebody crunched the numbers over the last 10 years. So if this playoff format had been in place the last 10 years, you'd have added 5 10-win teams, 9 9-win teams, and 6 8-win teams. So you're trending more towards, those top-end teams, double-digit wins, 9-win teams. I mean, Pittsburgh Steelers sounds like they would have been the franchise that would have most benefited from that. Playoff with more Steelers in it. I mean, who can argue that? I think what you're saying, Cedric, is valid. If you look at the type of teams that would have been added, you're not adding losing record teams. You're adding good teams to the playoffs. I don't think there could be much bad about that, frankly.
I don't either. Could you imagine the first weekend of the playoffs? You've got what? You've got 4 games.
Yeah.
Or do you have 6 games?
I think it expands because you're talking about 2 teams with the bye, 12 teams playing, so 6 games that first weekend.
6
exactly.
games. So you've got a 2 versus 7, a 3 versus 6, and a 4 versus 5. Sign me up, Jen. I'm all over that. I love it.
Well, my feeling, Cedric, the best weekend of football is actually that semifinal conference weekend where you have the 4 games happening, such good teams. I think you just add those type of weekends to the playoffs. And, there's been talk about, and you mentioned this early, Cedric, and what we were talking about, adding a regular season game. It feels like to me that maybe this is the type of thing that, while obviously another regular season game lines the pocket of every team because you're charging more for your season tickets, you're getting more people through the gates, you're getting more TV revenue. Everybody benefits from that. But I just don't think there's a stomach for that considering player safety. But if you're talking about the postseason and you're talking about 2 additional teams, I think that's where you can see the league agreeing that this is the way to increase revenue, as if these guys need more, but they always want more, but it increases revenue without that overall shift that really puts all players, in the crosshairs in a way. If you add that extra game, that would definitely, hamper reducing the amount of contact, practice, games, all that sort of thing. You'd have it across the board, everybody playing. This seems to be maybe that middle ground that you get the benefit of the playoff money without everybody playing an extra day. And Cedric, I think you're right. I think the whole idea that, it could really put a premium on getting that top seed. Now, teams like to have the bye, but I don't necessarily think they feel like it's some huge advantage. Now, that's a huge advantage to be the one team in your conference sitting out. That's huge.
It's huge because everybody's beaten up at the end of the season.
Yep.
And the best team, the top 2 seeds, are going to be able to rest their big dogs, possibly for 2 weeks. And then those other teams are still got to go through the grind. There's going to be some really good football teams playing in that first weekend. I hope that thing goes through and becomes a reality, because the NFL doesn't always come up with the best ideas. This is one of the better ideas. I think another thing they should do is expand the rosters to make it. Go ahead and expand those rosters to 60.
Yeah.
If you do that, it could cut down on injuries. Get some more young men a chance to make some money, and also improve the quality of play. I think that this is going to happen. I think that it's a smart idea. Anytime you can get more playoff games, give me more playoff games and fewer preseason games.
Oh.
I'm all over that.
Yeah, if you want to take away the preseason entirely, I'm on board with that, frankly. But you're right. I think the roster expansion, that may be one of those things the Players Association says, all right, we're on board with more teams in the playoffs, but you got to give us more bodies throughout the year. That may be something that we see too, which would not be a bad idea in my mind, because you'd likely see some of those guys, maybe practice squad guys, would become special teamers, those sorts of things in special situations, be able to use those type of players. I think that could be a really nice middle ground too, to help teams as they look towards an extra playoff game potentially for some teams.